How do the people that investigated you view you? We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to address and answer the same questions I think all of you as defendants should ask, or if you're home from prison, you should ask. Welcome, everyone. I am Justin Paperny with White Collar Advice, and our team is very grateful that you're with us. We know you're busy, so we're going to jump right in and provide some value. Last week in Lexington, Kentucky, I filmed a video where I mentioned our Straight-A Guide Sentencing Mitigation Program. Because of that video, I've received a number of emails from people saying, hey, what is the Straight-A Guide Sentencing Mitigation Program? How can it help me prepare for sentencing, get the shortest sentence, maximize my time in the halfway house, get off probation early, and everything that essentially all of you want as federal defendants. So I'll convey to you, the Straight-A Guide can certainly help you prepare for sentencing and early release and everything that accompanies your end goal, which is getting out as quickly as possible. But beyond that, the Straight-A Guide program will help you create valuable content that you'll be able to use, not just for years, but for decades. I've been home from prison for 11 years. I'm still using the content. For some background, the Straight-A Guide program, and I proudly run the Straight-A Guide Foundation, named in honor of my business partner, Michael Santos. Michael Santos created the Straight-A Guide Foundation more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago in prison. And Michael frequently says the precepts that are part of the Straight-A Guide, he didn't create. He learned them from other leaders. He wanted to pass it along, and I want to pass it along to you with the hopes that it will help you not just prepare for sentencing and getting out of prison early, but for working to change that the narrative that people have of you as a convicted felon. So let's talk about that for a little bit. Earlier today or this morning, of course, if any of you want to chat or speak with me, text 818-424-2220. I got a text message from someone. There was a long message, but part of the text that I'll read says, my lawyer told me not to turn in anything because it can be held against me. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. You're approaching a sentencing hearing, or you want to get out of prison early. You want a case manager to give you more halfway house time, or you want to get off probation early. And this lawyer, and frankly, a lot of lawyers and defendants work under the idea there's nothing I need to say or nothing I need to do. So you need to assess, use your own judgment. Does it seem logical that if you're trying to influence people that you should sit on the sidelines and do absolutely nothing? Now, of course you shouldn't, if the content you're going to turn in, whether it's a narrative or completing our Straight-A Guide program, if the content is going to help you, or if the content is not going to help you, if it's going to make you look like a fool, if it's going to blame or excuse or rationalize your conduct, if it's going to put everyone else before the victims, of course you don't turn in that sort of narrative, or you don't complete our Straight-A Guide program. Of course that it would hurt you. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. If the content is moving in the right direction and you have an understanding of who you're trying to influence, namely the probation officer, a prosecutor, a judge, and every other bureaucrat that's going to work within this system, if you can understand that, you'll be better prepared to move forward. Our work, as I frequently say to potential clients, to all of you who are watching, are for those defendants willing to take action through their own efforts to demonstrate what they've learned. In our opinion, judges are used to hearing lawyers extol the virtues of their clients and argue why they're worthy of a shorter sentence. They're paid to do it. I pray your lawyer does it well. Our Straight-A Guide program will help you articulate. So let's go through some of the questions from lesson 1 of our Straight-A Guide. And a number of our clients, they will go through the Straight-A Guide program. We will edit it. We will package it up. We will send it to the lawyer. We will send it to the probation officer. We have a client now. He's going to take his Straight-A Guide work. There's 10 classes, more than 100 questions. He's written tens of thousands of words. We're going to package it into a little ebook on Amazon. He's going to disseminate it, not just to the stakeholders. It's also a legacy piece. So he can share with his young children someday what he learned from confinement, what he would have done differently. There's a great deal of value whether you do it publicly, as I do, or you do it privately amongst your family. If you don't document and write, besides, of course, it's going to help you get a better outcome, you're missing golden opportunities to grow and to benefit. And I'm of the opinion there's incontrovertible evidence that this is the right path to go, regardless of what a lawyer with a God complex may say, or regardless of what others who don't fully understand the system may tell you. So let's jump in with question 1 of the Straight-A Guide program. Instead of thinking about me, I'm thinking about others. I'm thinking about how others define me today. Question number 1, how do the people that investigated my crime view me? Well, when I was a defendant, I can tell you, David Willingham was the U.S. attorney that indicted me. He's now a top defense attorney in downtown Los Angeles. I've done some work with him. He's referred me clients. I've asked David, what did you think of me? He said, I thought you were a bad guy. I thought you were an arrogant, pompous, spoiled kid. I don't think you were willing to accept responsibility for anything. You had golden opportunities to help yourself, but you were too focused on yourself and how your own life was falling apart. So I didn't have any sympathy for you, Justin. How would I have sympathy for you? You didn't identify with victims. You didn't do anything to express to me that you were worthy of leniency. All you did was lie, feign ignorance to this fraud that you were clearly a part of. So I'll tell you what I thought of you, how I view you. I thought you were a bad guy who was not worthy of leniency. Question 1 of the Straight-A Guide program, own it. So if you're a mortgage broker who called me 3 days ago from Detroit, or if you're a physician who just called me from Nashville, and you're trying to assess how the stakeholders currently view you, own it. They don't view you as a doctor, or a mortgage broker, or a husband, or a son, or a Little League coach, or someone who's given back for years. They don't. They view you for the worst decision you ever made in your whole entire life. Now, you can have a great lawyer articulate why your conduct was aberrational, you didn't have intent, all of the, the common, arguments that a defense attorney is going to make. You can rely upon them, or you can work to change the narrative and own it. They think that I'm a criminal. They think I'm scum. They think that I was born bad. Great. Let's own it. Let's talk about it. Question number 2, with the evidence that he has seen, what does the prosecutor think about me as a human being? Well, 1 and 2 kind of conflate together a little bit. I almost just addressed it a moment ago. What does the prosecutor think about me as a human being? Well, it doesn't think I'm a good person. It thinks I'm born bad. It thinks I'm incapable of reform. It thinks I'm selfish, short-sighted, puts others before myself. Own it, talk about it, because throughout this Straight-A Guide program, you're going to show your transition, how you're growing, how you identify with your values. But if you can't articulate where you are today and where you're going, how are you going to express to a judge what lessons you've learned from this? How are you going to convey, well, you'll never return to another courtroom? So you've got to own it. Now, some people don't want to have this conversation. Some people don't want to have this discussion. They want to pretend that it's not happening. I received a call, a couple weeks ago when I was just before I went to Kentucky, where a defendant had significant resources, and the issue wasn't vetting me. He read my book, he read the blogs, he's watched the videos, he's begun to prepare, but he said, Justin, the reality of this is just too overwhelming. I think I'm going to wait as long as I have to really get going, knowing that that's going to lead to more pain on the other side, but shorter term, it may make him feel better. So going through the Straight-A Guide program requires a sense of ownership and recognition that you're here, and I know that's not easy. Question number 3, what thoughts do my victims have about me? Well, in my case, the victims thought that I was a greedy, selfish, entitled stockbroker who conspired with my colleagues at UBS to turn the other way for commissions while trying to protect ourselves from any fallout. My victims would think I abandoned my fiduciary oath to act responsibly, professionally, ethically. My victims think that I'm a bad guy. Now, not all of them came and forgave me, but I received some letters from victims in prison who, I can't say they forgave me, but they applauded my efforts to try to restore some faith and to apologize and to accept responsibility and to convey why I can become better. But I think if you're aware, you need to convey and help the government understand that you are aware of what the victims feel and you empathize with their pain. And more than happy talk, you're going to create a realistic record that can lead to making amends. How have my actions influenced the lives of others? Number 4. Some of our clients answer this in 500 words. Some of them answer it in 5,000 words. I mean, think about all the lives that are impacted by a white-collar crime case. Your own life, your family, your friends, your employers. I mean, it's massive. And then there are the victims, of course. You always put the victims first. So if I were to answer how have my actions influenced the lives of others, I would say I've impacted people that love and support me significantly. Because of my short-sightedness, I made decisions without thinking about how it would influence them. And because of that, I brought pain and shame to those who have done nothing wrong. Yet I'm so grateful they choose to stand beside me. And I'm going to continue to work every day to be worthy of that love and support. I'm going to nurture it. I'm going to let them know that second chances are possible, but I'm going to earn it. And I'm going to ask them in time to juxtapose my life before prison and after prison and look at it all together and say, you can still be a productive community citizen. So you have to acknowledge this has significantly impacted people and begin to create a path moving forward. Next, questions. Next question. What steps can I take today to work toward reconciling with society and making things right? Well, reconciling with society, if you pled guilty or if you broke the law, it starts with accepting responsibility. Something that Michael Santos taught me in prison was this phrase, happy talk, where everybody talks about it. Very few people actually follow through. Defendants know they need to hold a lawyer accountable. Defendants know they need to create first-person content. Defendants know they need to go through necessary steps to prepare for a probation interview and sentencing and everything, but not everyone does it. It's the analogy of the guy that wants six-pack abs, but he sits on the couch eating donuts. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. So taking a measurable steps towards reconciliation requires ownership, accepting responsibility, but then actually doing the work. What does that work entail? Is it cooperation? Is it paying money back? Is it creating a new career that can help support your family? And if there's restitution, paying that money back? Is it simply writing an open letter to people that you've hurt, asking them to hold you accountable moving forward? So you've got to be able to assess what steps can you take to reconcile. It's not going to come just through words. So when I get that text message from a defendant that says, my lawyer doesn't want me to turn anything in, the response is, great. If that's what your judgment tells you, you will always be sold judicially. You will always be judged by your Department of Justice press release, by what your lawyer says, by your plea agreement, by your prison term, by the narrative the government has created. And we talk about that narrative and how to change it in our sentencing mitigation program and in our books, Lessons from Prison, and elsewhere. Of course, books that you can get for free. You should grab it if you really want to prepare and take the time. Number 7, with the information that he has, what is the judge thinking about my character as a human being? I've had the privilege of speaking on stage with judges. My partner, Michael Santos, has interviewed judges. Judge Benita Pearson told me on stage at an ACTO conference in June of 2018 that the defendant should treat sentencing like a full-time job. And if I don't know every fracture and detail of their life, I'm just not going to have enough information to go by, and I'm just going to rely on what the government has told me or what their lawyer has told me. So if you don't work to change the narrative and convey what you've learned and where you're going, it's really illogical to think the judge is just going to guess and get there on his or her own. Like, yeah, you seem like a great person. Yeah, thank you. That doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I still come across defendants whose lawyers won't let them say anything or write anything. And you can, if that's what your judgment tells you, if you have a lawyer with a God complex that doesn't let you take any of your own initiative. Even if your lawyer didn't let you turn in this content, it's still good you've documented it. You can still share it with people who love and support you. You can still create a record that you can refer to and share down the road. The Straight-A Guide program isn't just for sentencing. It's for the rest of your life. Michael Santos, I used to ask Michael in prison, said, when do you complete the Straight-A Guide program? Attitude, aspiration, action, accountability, achievement, awareness. And he said, but you never complete the Straight-A Guide program. We're works in progress. We're always trying to be better. We're always trying to live faithfully to our values. We're always trying to change the narrative about what people with a felony conviction can become or overcome. You never graduate the Straight-A Guide program. I'm in this till I'm gone. And that's why whether your lawyer lets you turn it in or not, you still do it. And you share it with other people. If others knew more about the influences in my life, how would they perceive me? So that's a really important question, and something that I've discussed when I was on stage with Judge Pearson. And I shared this story years ago. We filmed a YouTube video with a client named Mike Stoll, and we worked on a phenomenal narrative. And I remember when we worked on the narrative, his lawyer essentially called him and said something like, Mike, ain't nobody care, I think that was the actual words, don't nobody care that you were milking cows or delivering milk with your father at 9 and 10 years old. The narrative is too long. It was like 8 pages. It's too long. The judge is busy. It's going to waste his time. Nobody cares that you were delivering milk at 10 years old. And Mike called me and he said, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do I do? Do we remove it? I said, well, I think it's really relevant. He said, why? I said, well, I'm someone who didn't have to work at 10 years old. I was playing baseball at 10 years old, traveling the country, playing baseball at 10 years old. My first job really wasn't until I was waiting tables in college, just to get some work experience behind me. But I wasn't working at 10. You were. I think that speaks to your character. I think that speaks to your discipline. He's like, I also work because it was the only time I could see my father because he worked around the clock. I wanted to see my dad, but I also had to work. So we talk about other influences in the life, how people would perceive you. I said to him, if the judge reads this narrative, I think your judge will be impressed by the fact that you began working at such a young age and you do have discipline. You are not lazy. Yes, you made some bad choices, but it gives you a different perspective than a guy like me. So lo and behold, at the sentencing, it's in the transcripts. Essentially, the judge told Mike how much he appreciated that he shared that story, how much he appreciated that he shared that story of working as a young boy with his father to make money and to spend time with him because it spoke to his discipline and commitment. So when we think about the perception of others, you've got to own it. If you're privileged and you've had a lot of opportunities, you gotta own that. That was me. I knew right from wrong. I had a lot of breaks and privileges that people in this courtroom don't have. Own it. Be authentic. Talk about it. The judge will appreciate it. If on the flip side, like clients of mine who have come to this country from nothing and built and grown businesses and employed people who have overcome a great deal of hardships and adversity in their life, this is a piece of it. Talk about that. So look, I'm not going to go through every question in the Straight-A Guide, but this is how I'll close. Here's my suggestion. You've got to create compelling first-person content that's going to influence the way that people see you. Your prosecutor, your probation officer, your judge, your case manager. It may be foreign to your lawyers to have a client creating so much first-person content. Well, that's why I'm creating this video, to help you. Some people say my videos are too long. If you're engaged and you're learning and you know this will help you get the shortest sentence in the most favorable institution, you'll watch. But beyond watching, I beg you, you got to take action. You got to take action. If it's not the Straight-A Guide program, find another writing program. I think it's a great program. The BOP is actually invested in this program. Every California prisoner goes through the Straight-A Guide program, or a version of the Michael Santos created. So it was created specifically for defendants and for prisoners to document what they've learned through this experience, how they're recalibrating their values, how they identify with victims. And like I said, some clients write a few thousand words completing the program, others write tens of thousands of words. Regardless, it's on you. If you're watching this video, you know what to do. It's one thing to have no idea, what to do. You won't do it. That's one thing. I get that call a lot from someone who had no idea that they could write a narrative or really prepare for sentencing. They get sentenced, they Google, they call me, they watch a video, they read an article, and they'll say, oh my God, I now want to do this. Can we do it? And I'll say, well, we can prepare moving forward, but I can't change the fact that you just got sentenced. I can't undo the past or change the past. And if I could, I wouldn't be a federal prison consultant or writer, I assure you, right? And they say, yeah, well, my lawyer didn't tell me. I didn't know. So it's one thing not to know. But now you do know. I knew. I was a lazy, lethargic defendant who outsourced all the work and didn't want to take action. I talked about it. I sounded good, but I didn't follow through. You now know what to do. The question is, what do you do with the knowledge? And that's how I'll wrap up at 10:50 in the morning on Sunday. I'm going to go play the rarest round of golf with some very good friends in Los Angeles. My first round in a few months, but before I leave, I want to film this video. You want to learn more about the Straight-A Guide program? Reach out. Take action through your own efforts and demonstrate why you're worthy of leniency, not just at sentencing, but in prison, on probation, for an employer, for a relationship, and everything else that accompanies being a white-collar felon, something that I've endured for the last 12 years. Thanks so much for checking in. Prepare, 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 or as Michael Santos used to end his letters to me when he was still in prison and I was home, he'd always say, work, 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 with an exclamation point. Let's get to work. I'm happy to help. Bye-bye.